The line at the ATM stretches around the corner. It is 6 in the morning. The machine has been empty since yesterday. A man in a suit checks his banking app for the 4th time. The balance is there. The money is there, but the screen says, withdrawal, unavailable. He refreshes the page. Same balance, same message. He looks at the people behind him. Some of them have been here since 5. None of them are panicking, not yet. The system is working, the accounts are active, the banks are open, and the money cannot be touched. Most people believe that capital controls are something that happens in failed states, in places with dictators, in economies that were already broken. They imagine it as a distant, dramatic collapse, something you would see coming from miles away. And that belief is exactly what makes capital controls so effective. Because they never arrive with a warning label. They arrive after a series of quiet, ordinary-looking steps that most people ignore. Steps that feel completely reasonable until the door shuts. And by the time people understand what is happening, they no longer have a choice. There is one signal that appears before all the others. When it shows up, the rest are already in motion. But most people have never heard of it because it hides inside a number that nobody reads. There are 5 warning signs. They appeared in Greece before June 2015. They appeared in Iceland before October 2008. They appeared in Thailand before 1997, in Nigeria before its currency restrictions, in India before the demonetization shock of 2016. And the most unsettling part is not that they appeared. It is that almost nobody recognized them for what they were until it was too late. There is one detail about these 5 signs that makes them different from any other financial warning. They do not predict a crisis. They are the crisis already underway the moment you see them. There is a specific point in this sequence where governments stop trying to fix the system and start trying to contain the people inside it. We will get to that moment, but first, you need to understand how the sequence begins, because it starts in a place no one is watching. Here is the first sign. It is also the most ignored. It never feels dangerous when it begins. A country's debt to GDP ratio crosses a critical threshold and keeps climbing. Not once, not briefly, but consistently, quarter after quarter, with no credible plan to reverse it. This is the foundation of everything that follows. When a government owes more than its economy produces, the math starts to close in. Grow out of the debt, inflate it away, restructure it, or control the flow of money so it cannot leave. Most governments will try the first 3 before they reach the 4th. But once debt to GDP crosses 120% in an economy that does not control a global reserve currency, every door starts narrowing. Greece reached 170% before the capital controls hit. Iceland's banking sector held assets worth 10 times the country's GDP, not government debt in the traditional sense, but a form of systemic leverage so extreme that the effect was the same. The economy could not absorb the loss. The exits had to be sealed. Most people look at debt to GDP as an abstract number, a chart in a financial report. But this number is a countdown. It tells you how long a government can keep borrowing before the lenders stop lending. And when the lenders stop, the government turns inward toward the money that is already inside its borders, toward your money. And that is where the second sign begins, the one that separates countries that recover from countries that lock down. Bank deposit outflows begin to accelerate. Not a panic, not a bank run, not yet. Just a steady, quiet increase in people moving money out, transferring savings to foreign accounts, converting local currency to dollars or euros, pulling cash from ATMs in slightly larger amounts than usual. Individually, none of these actions look alarming. But in aggregate, They form the most reliable early warning in financial history because deposit outflows are not a measure of economics. They are a measure of trust, and trust does not decline gradually. It holds, it holds, it holds, and then it snaps. Imagine it is early 2015. You are a business owner in Athens. The negotiations with European creditors are going badly. The new government is defiant. You do not fully understand the details, but something feels wrong. So you transfer a portion of your savings to a German bank account, just in case. You are not panicking. You are being prudent. And you are one of thousands doing exactly the same thing. In the months before Greece imposed capital controls in June 2015, the banking system lost tens of billions of euros in deposits. The money did not vanish, it relocated. And that relocation created the very crisis it was trying to escape. Deposits left. The banks weakened. The banks weakened. The European Central Bank tightened emergency lending. The terms tightened. More people moved their money. The spiral fed itself. And the government's only remaining option became the only option left. Shut the doors. Limit withdrawals to 60 euros per day. Freeze transfers abroad. The people who moved their money early were safe. The people who waited were trapped. And the difference between the two groups was not intelligence, not wealth, not connections. It was timing. When you see the professionals moving, that is the second warning sign. But most people stop the analysis here. They think outflows lead to controls. Simple cause and effect. That is a mistake. Because the third sign reveals something far more dangerous. A mechanism that looks like stability while it eats a country alive. A currency peg comes under pressure. A currency peg is a promise, a government saying, our money is worth this much, and we will defend that value. Countries peg their currencies to attract investment, to keep imports affordable, to maintain confidence. But a peg is only as strong as the reserves behind it. When those reserves start to drain, the peg becomes a liability. Defending it requires spending real foreign currency dollars, euros, yen, and every dollar spent defending the peg is a dollar no longer available for anything else. In Bangkok, in early 1997, everything looked normal. Hotels were full. Construction cranes dotted the skyline. The baht was stable, pegged to the dollar, as it had been for over a decade. But underneath, the current account deficit was growing. Short-term foreign debt was rising, and the central bank's reserves were quietly being spent defending the peg through forward contracts. By the time currency speculators targeted the baht, the Bank of Thailand had already committed most of its usable reserves. The peg broke on July 2nd, 1997. The baht lost half its value within months. Capital controls followed, and the crisis did not stay in Thailand. It spread to Indonesia, to South Korea, to Malaysia, because the same pattern was playing out in each of those countries simultaneously. This is what makes a currency peg under pressure so dangerous. It looks like stability until the moment it isn't. There is no gradual decline. There is a peg, and then there is a collapse. If you live in a country with a managed exchange rate, watch for two things: the central bank spending reserves at an accelerating pace, or the gap between the official rate and the black market rate widening. That means the peg is cracking, and once it cracks, the capital controls are not far behind. But the next sign does not require charts or financial knowledge. It requires only paying attention to the small daily rules that govern how you use your own money, because those rules are about to change in ways you will only recognize in hindsight. This is where the system stops hiding. A woman in New Delhi walks into her bank on the morning of November 9th, 2016. She is holding a stack of 500 rupee notes her household savings for the month. The teller looks at the notes and says, "These are no longer money, as of last night." She does not understand. She has not watched the news. She has been working. And now the paper in her hands is worthless. That is the fourth warning sign, not in theory, but in practice. Cash transaction restrictions begin to tighten, and then, sometimes, they detonate. It starts small. New rules requiring ID for transactions above a certain amount, a lower threshold for reporting deposits, a limit on how much currency you can carry out of the country. Each change, taken alone, sounds reasonable: anti-money laundering, tax compliance, payment modernization, and sometimes that is exactly what they are. But sometimes they are preparation, the infrastructure of control, built piece by piece before the control itself is announced. India's demonetization was the most extreme version. The government declared that 86% of all circulating banknotes were no longer legal tender overnight. The stated reason was to combat corruption and counterfeit currency, but the effect was immediate. The government controlled who could access money and how much. Long lines at banks, limits on withdrawals. A cash economy, the backbone of daily life, for hundreds of millions paralyzed in a single announcement. India's demonetization was not a capital control in the classical sense. But the mechanism was identical. The state redefined the terms of access to money that people already had. And the warning signs before it, a push toward digital payments, new rules on gold purchases, tighter reporting requirements, were all variations of the same pattern. The infrastructure of restriction was built before the restriction arrived. And here is where that pattern connects to the fifth sign, the one that ties everything together. Because every restriction you have seen so far, the debt ceiling, the deposit drain, the currency defense, the cash limits, can exist for years without triggering capital controls. Millions of people live inside these conditions right now without realizing it. A shopkeeper in Lagos who can no longer accept payments above a certain amount in cash. A retiree in Cairo watching the gap between the official exchange rate and the street rate widen week after week. They adjust, they adapt, they assume this is just how things work now. But there is one final ingredient that turns these conditions into a trap. This is where governments stop trying to fix the system and start trying to survive inside it. Political instability combined with a fiscal deficit. This is the trigger. Everything else, the debt, the outflows, the peg, the cash restrictions, these are conditions, the dry wood. But the spark is almost always political. A government under pressure, facing an election or a legitimacy crisis, combined with a budget that does not balance. When a government is both politically unstable and fiscally desperate, capital controls become attractive for a reason that has nothing to do with economics. They become a tool of survival. They keep money inside the system. They prevent the kind of capital flight that would make a fiscal crisis visible. They buy time, not for the economy, but for the people in power. Iceland, in October 2008, is the clearest illustration. The three largest banks collapsed within days of each other. Their combined assets were 10 times the country's GDP. The government could not bail them out. The numbers were simply too large. The krona lost more than half its value. Foreign currency reserves evaporated. And the political situation was combustible. Protests erupted. The government eventually fell. In that environment, capital controls were not a choice. They were the only mechanism that prevented a complete collapse. Moving money into or out of Iceland was banned without a license from the central bank. Icelandic residents were required to deposit any foreign currency they received with an Icelandic bank. The controls that were supposed to be temporary lasted 8 years. This exact sequence has repeated across decades and continents. Political crisis plus fiscal deficit equals capital controls. Not because governments are evil, but because when the math stops working and the politics are unstable, controlling the flow of money is the fastest way to prevent an immediate collapse. It is the emergency brake. And like all emergency brakes, it is pulled at the expense of the passengers. But understanding these 5 signs separately is not enough, because the real danger is what happens when they connect. These 5 signs do not appear in isolation. They appear together. They feed each other, and they form a chain reaction that, once started, becomes almost impossible to stop. Debt pushes people to move money. Money leaving weakens the banks. Weakened banks force the central bank to tighten lending. Tighter lending slows the economy. A slowing economy deepens the fear. Deeper fear pushes more money out. And at every stage, the political pressure increases, making restrictions more likely, not less. The system is no longer weakening, it is closing. What makes this pattern truly unsettling is not that it has happened before. It is that the conditions exist right now in multiple countries simultaneously. Debt to GDP ratios are at historic highs. Deposit movements are faster than ever, meaning outflows can accelerate in hours instead of months. Currency pegs are under pressure across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. Cash restrictions and digital payment mandates are expanding everywhere, and political instability is not the exception, it is the norm. None of this means that capital controls are coming to your country tomorrow. The presence of warning signs is not the same as the presence of a crisis. But here is what the pattern teaches. The controls never arrive when people expect them. They arrive on a weekend. They arrive after a bank holiday that was supposed to last 3 days and lasts 3 weeks. They arrive with a reassuring press conference and a promise that this is temporary, this is for your protection, this will be over soon. Greece's €60 daily withdrawal limit was supposed to be temporary. It lasted 4 years. Here is what most people get wrong about capital controls. They think the danger is losing money. It isn't. In most cases, the money is still there. The balance does not change. The account is not emptied. Nothing is taken. What disappears is something people never thought of as separate from money itself: movement. The ability to send it, convert it, withdraw it, move it across a border. The money stays. The freedom to use it leaves. It is not taken, not stolen, not confiscated. Just slowed until slow becomes stopped. And that distinction between having money and being able to move it is the most important financial concept that almost nobody understands until it is too late. Money does not disappear in a capital control. Movement does. Right now, somewhere in the world, a central banker is watching deposit outflow data and calculating how long the reserves will hold. A finance minister is reviewing draft legislation to lower the reporting threshold for cash transactions. A political leader is being told that without emergency measures, the budget cannot be funded through the next quarter. These conversations are not hypothetical. They happen in real time, in real governments, in countries that look stable from the outside, and they do not begin with the decision to impose controls. They begin with the decision to slow things down. A small delay on international transfers, a new approval process for large withdrawals, a temporary measure, they will say, just until things stabilize. That is how it starts, not with a lock, with a friction. And by the time the friction becomes a wall, you are already on the wrong side of it.